So we know that there's all types of human relations. So all sorts of human relations. There's a boss, there's workers, there's a friend relationship, a husband and wife relationship. There's several. What is the very first relationship that we have? It's pretty easy.
Parents.
Besides God. Besides God. Human relations we're talking about over here. What's the first human relation?
Parent.
Child parent is the first, right? It's the first relationship. And I guess if we, if we understand that relationship, we can then broaden it from there to other relationships and appreciate them and deal with them in the appropriate and healthiest and best manner possible. As a matter of fact, interesting to note, Avram Avinu, the first Jew. Andrew, welcome. Sorry you didn't say hello. Denise, welcome. And I think now Linda's coming on. Welcome to Linda. So Avram Avinu, the first Jew, what did God laud him for and what did God love him for? I mean, there's many things, obviously, but what precisely is his great quality?
Chesed.
Chesed. Okay, that's his quality, 100%. But that's not what God lauds him for and what God ultimately chooses him as the father of the Jewish people. In other words, a father to his people, says Linda. Is that Linda? I don't know who said that.
Well, I guess a conduit between him and the nation and the world, no?
Okay, good. Good, but not precise.
He converts everyone to Judaism.
Okay. Good, but not precise. Making you work hard today.
No clue.
Any other thoughts?
The belief in one God.
Excellent, but no.
He argues with God.
Good try. Okay, let's see. What do you see? Do you see Bo tending to God's children?
Mm-hmm.
You see that? Okay, good.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so text 1a, in Bereshis. What is it? What is that unique quality? What does it say? I have known him because he instructs his children and his household after him, that they should keep the way of God to perform righteousness and justice. Therefore, God will bring upon Abraham the blessings he spoke concerning him. So what is the great quality that Avraham Avinu has? The importance of not that he is just kind, not just that he is a righteous person, not just that he'll stand up for those who need to be stood up for, like in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, which is very true, but he carries the message forward, right? The importance of carrying it forward. That's what his affection is, that he's educating his family, and not just his family, but his household, which his household doesn't mean just his children, but it means far and above and beyond that. Okay. Margot, welcome. Thank you for joining. So that's greater than his personal spiritual accomplishments. And as the previous Rebbe says, or previous Rebbe says, as the Rebbe quotes him in Hayoim Yoim, a thought of the day, God cherished Abraham primarily because he instructs his children in his household. Now the words instruct, the Yitzhava, can also mean connects. In other words, all of Abraham's achievements pale in comparison to his instructing and connecting others, as well as making them too meritorious. Right? Now, although, as we said, the very first relationship that we have in our lives is a parent-child relationship, right? And, till we grow up, I guess you could call it the most important until you get married. And that's what it says, the verse, right? That a man has to leave his parents and then cleave to his wife, right? So, although this is the first and primary in a sense, at least in the formative years, but from this first relationship, it's not limited, of course, to your own children, in the sense that what was great about Abraham wasn't that he just instructed his children, but his household. And household here means the collective people that were, so to speak, under his umbrella, under his influence, right? So meaning what's important is, what are you doing for the next generation? What are you doing to make sure? Now, of course, that will start with those that are directly under your domain, right? But it doesn't end only those who you have direct, who are your children only in a physical sense, right? She'll get more into it. So how do we deal with that next generation? How do we deal with your own children? How do you deal with any child or any person that we're inspiring, we're influencing, that should be, following the path for the coming generations? So the first thing that we need to know is that God creates us. Well, he created Adam individual. Wasn't created like animals. Animals come in herds. We're looking for herd immunity, right? When it comes to COVID. but we have to be careful with that, because it's very easy then to treat humans as herds. Very easy to do that. And in a certain sense, humanity is treated that way. People do that. People in power do that, because that's how they look. And of course, when it comes to, looking on how you're going to deal with a pandemic, so there is that notion. But when you're concerned, when you're worried and thinking about how you're going to guarantee the next generation, then there cannot be this concept of a herd. Can I Nahara? I'm very blessed, my wife and I, 10 kids. It's a herd. And sometimes it's a wild, right? As in last week's Torah portion, the wild beasts. And sometimes there can be that notion or that feeling. But that's not how you got to deal with them, of course. Sometimes it's easy to do that. And sometimes the instinct is we want to do that because it's easier that way. Whether you're a parent or whether you're a teacher in a classroom. So what is the uniqueness is, just as Animals were created in a multitude, but Adam was created one and only, singular, unique. So that means each one, each child, each student, each person that we're dealing with, that we're trying to inspire, needs to be looked at in such a manner, right? That they are an entire universe. An entire universe. Just as Adam was one, he was the entire universe. It was all created just for him. Yes, he's a progenitor of all of us, but it's all for him. So we need to be able to look at this person in such a manner. I can humbly say that I'm very lucky that that there were a few people guided by God Almighty and ultimately by the Rebbe's blessing that what I have in my life is because I was, I don't come from a religious home. I don't come from a background of, committed to Judaism. Very, what's the word? Very proud to be a Jew. Very feeling connected, not knowing what that meant at all, but feeling, that connection as a Jew. And because people in my life, welcome Pablo, welcome Hannah. It's late at night in Manchester. And Irma, thank you for coming. And whoever can put on their video makes it inspirational for all of us. So, excuse me. So the fact that I was looked at as just one person, as one individual, not part of a herd, of a whole gang, but because I was dealt with in such a way. So, here I am today, Canine Heart with a herd. I'm just kidding. With a herd of individuals. But think about it, and Canine Heart as a result, what has come as a result of that. So this is the first thing that in dealing, we need to recognize everybody as that individual. And this is the Malbim, a 19th century commentator. He explains the following in text number 2. It's in front of you, small print perhaps, but I'll read it. Train a child according to his way, King Solomon said. Even when he grows old, he will not turn away from it. Malbim says this means that education must be tailored to the student because every person is naturally adaptive to something else. Intellectually, some are sharp, while others are more straightforward. And each needs to be taught accordingly. Or in a skill set, each has their own particular niche where they can catch on easily and excel. An educator can identify these by examining what the student is naturally attracted to and strives for. Once identified, the educator must tailor their instruction according to each student's intellectual makeup and skill set. If one follows this approach, then even when he grows old, he will not turn away from it. However, if one educates a child without taking their unique natural inclinations into account, the instruction will fail the test of time. So, what is the Malbim saying? Anybody? You know what he's saying? What what underlying point he's making before Shoshana Bina? You're gonna, you know what he's really telling us? You know who we are? We're all teachers. We're all teachers, and we all have people that we influence and inspire. So Shoshana Bina, you wanted to say, go ahead.
I just wanted to agree with that completely and totally. Like I can teach the exact same class 3 times a day and it's going to be a completely different class because of the kids that I teach.
Right.
That's so true.
Oh, a true teacher has spoken. Shoshana Bina is a teacher. And yes, very true. But, that's your paid position, is to be a teacher. We all have people that we inspire and we make a difference. Every day we say the Shema. Every day we say the Shema, twice a day, even 3 times. Twice a day is a mitzvah, in the morning and the evening, and then before you go to bed. What do we say in the Shema? Veshinantam levanecha. And what it means, literally, shinanta means you should teach. I don't know, but it's interesting. It doesn't say v'limadatem, that you should, which is the word limud. Shinantam comes from like the word shein, which is teeth. So it's a teaching with a very precise and kind of, what's the word, very exacting kind of teaching. And why is the term being used over there for shinantam instead of limadatem? Is because levanecha means to your, literally would be translated to your child, right? To your children. Talmud says no. To your students. That's what the translation means. Later on in the second paragraph, limadatem is benechem. There it's speaking about your children. But before we get to our children, is even being an educator of educating a student, having a student as someone that learns from you. Now, it could be your child, of course, but it's not limited to your child. It means anybody that you have an influence, inspiration, that you are doing what Abraham did, making sure the next generation should continue the path of Jewish teachings. That's his greatness. That's what our greatness is, what we need to do. Not limited to our children, as the first verse in the Shema. It's speaking about students. Now, student doesn't mean the kids in your classroom. Obviously it means that. I shouldn't say it obviously means that. But it means anybody that we inspire, anybody that we have a relationship with. Welcome, Rena. Thank you for joining.
I apologize for being late.
No apologies necessary. Thank you for being here. That's what counts. So the important point over here is having an impact, having an influence. That's what is crucial. So in that sense, we're all teachers. Classroom, not classroom, here on Zoom like this, or whatever it is, whatever it takes. We need to be out there inspiring. Now, that being said, of course, one's own children comes first in responsibility. The Rebbe Rashab, 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe quotes it in Hayom Yom, says, just as it's putting on tefillin every day is a scriptural commandment, and that is incumbent on every male to fulfill this mitzvah, right? Whoever you are. Likewise, it's an absolute obligation that you should dedicate time every day to thinking about the education of your children here, specifically your children. Now, what your children is. So we just said Shinantam Levanecha means, right, those who you inspire, those who you, as a child was once playing in the house of the Rebbe's wife, the Rebbetzin Chayamushka, and the child was about 4 years old, and looked around and says, Rebbetzin, where are your children? She didn't have any children. So the Rebbetzin smiled and says, mine are all in 770 studying in the yeshiva. So yes, when it comes to obligation, the first obligation is to your children that you brought into this world physically, but that it doesn't end there, which we'll get to more later, that concept, right? So you got to do everything in your power to think about every day about how you're going to educate and bring up your children. So meaning that you have to be proactive, which unfortunately education really is not proactive in when you think about it in the sense of true education. True education is not about getting a degree and being proficient in math and history and literature, or geography, or whatever it is. That's not what true education is. True education is, as Avram saw, guaranteeing the next generation following the path, the ways of God, the ways of, for a Jew, for following the ways of Judaism. And even though we put in a lot of effort in it, and there's no guaranteeing of success, but our job is to look at everyone as that unique individual that we are making a difference in their lives. Welcome, Cherry. Thank you for joining. Any questions on this? Any comments? Thoughts? Okay.
I was reading the Tanya. Somebody was speaking about something in the Tanya about if you're engaged in mathematics or economics or anything that just for your own pleasure, it's not really connecting to God. I didn't know what to make of it. I don't know.
We learned about that in chapter 8, actually, of Tanya. Absolutely, we did learn that concept, and well, we'll get that. Let's get into that in a moment. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Excellent question. Excellent question. Okay, so there's a responsibility, as we see from Avram, that how God cherishes him because he takes the responsibility for his children, his household, for the people under him, so to speak, right? That he has. Now, what is that responsibility? So for a child of yours, so you need to be able to give them skills that they need to live life. So they need social skills, they need trade skills, perhaps, whatever it takes that a person needs to give them the training that they can stand on their own 2 feet and lead their own life, ultimately. We need to train them religiously. When the child begins to talk already, we need to teach them that their first words should be words of Torah. So we teach them right away, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. The Torah that was commanded to us from Moses is an inheritance to the Jewish people. And we need to train them in mitzvahs. There's many responsibilities and obligations that an individual has. Need to teach them how to daven and whatnot. So in this week's Torah portion is an interesting thing. We know the last 3 plagues. Give me just a quick moment. Sorry. It's cold in Montreal, but very warm here. So in this week's Torah portion, the last 3 plagues are wrought on the Egyptians. And the last one we know, of course, is the slaying of the firstborn Egyptian. Now, on some level, the Jewish people were not really so deserving to be redeemed. After being 210 years in Egypt, the lay of the land has its effect. And passing down the traditions from generation to generation didn't get stronger. It got weaker. Under slavery, harsh slavery, it got more weakened, became more difficult. So in a certain sense, the firstborn of the Jewish people, the fact that God did not slay them, that's the name of Passover, the homes of the Jewish people. God says, in a sense, you owe them to me. They have become sanctified to me. And in order to redeem that sanctity, that they, so to speak, become yours. So in this week's Torah portion, it gives us the mitzvah of redeeming the firstborn, pidyon bechors. Interesting, it's not even just the firstborn boy that's born, but it's even firstborn animals also have this obligation. Hold on one second. Let's take from the Parsha. Give me a moment. Let us. All right, here we go. And God spoke to Moshe, saying, sanctify every firstborn to me. Everyone that opens the womb firstborn to their mother among the children of Israel, among the men and among animals, they are all mine. All belong to God Almighty. As the verse continues, and you shall redeem every firstborn donkey with a lamb, and if you do not redeem it, you shall decapitate it. And every firstborn of men among your sons you shall redeem. Now, how are you to redeem? In other words, how are you to redeem a child? So in text number 9, the Rambam Maimonides says, by a biblical positive command, each Israelite must redeem his son, the firstborn of an Israelite mother. As the verse states, every firstborn belongs to me. And it is written, you shall have the firstborn of man redeemed. This duty is applicable everywhere and at all times. What is the price? For what price does he redeem him? For 5 shekels. As the verse states, the redemption price for the child of 1 month is the equivalent of 5 shekels. So that's the mitzvah. Again, in all rights, the firstborn of the Israelites, God saved you. You belong to me. To be redeemed, you need to pay for it. So it's interesting. I was actually not long ago at a pidyon ben. By the way, if you eat at such a meal, it's like fasting 84 fasts. So find a pidyon ben. So, now that doesn't absolve you from fasting Yom Kippur for 84 years, but 84 fasts, it's counted as when you eat at a pidyon ben. That's how lofty a mitzvah it is. So it's a beautiful sight. Child is there in the hands of the Kohen, because the Kohen acts as the proxy of God Almighty, right? Because and now because the Kohen is the one who's the servant of God. So now the firstborn, the Kohen says, well, what do you want? You rather have the riches or you rather have your child? Of course, it's not more a joke than anything. You give the 5 shekels. And now you have redeemed that child. That child no longer has the sanctity of belonging to God exclusively, and therefore ultimately was meant to be
Paid for.
serving for God in the Holy Temple, but now isn't serving for God in the Holy Temple, because ultimately the firstborn lost that right because they engaged in the sin of the golden calf, where the Levites, the tribe of the Levites, didn't, including the Kohanim, of course, the Kohanes. Is that clear? Any questions on that? Alice, you wanted to ask something?
No, my husband was a Kohen. He did many times.
Oh, okay.
We don't know what to do.
Okay, so you've
Discover.
had many
Yes.
a suda, a festive meal to celebrate. All right,
Mhm,
wonderful,
mhm.
beautiful.
Good.
Any questions on this? Okay, so here we're going to get into some biblical, Talmudic hair-splitting idea, and it goes as follows: who is responsible for redeeming this child? Now, the act of redeeming is done at 30 days, at a month, right, from birth. But there's a debate about this. Whose mitzvah is it? Is it, follow carefully, is it belong to the father? The father has the responsibility to redeem his child, which is probably what you all thought. You're wondering what other thing is there, right? Or is it really a responsibility of the child? But since the child is too young, the father acts as a proxy for the child. Now, you might be going like this and saying, Lamai nafkamina lahalacha. That's probably what you're thinking, right? Translated from my French. That was Aramaic, actually. What difference does it make? Good question. I knew you were thinking that. So the difference would be that when this child grows up, right, and the father didn't take care, didn't take responsibility, whose responsibility is it now? If it was the father's only the father's responsibility as a father, so then when the child grows up and is of age, bar mitzvah, where now you become responsible for yourself, at least beginning to take responsibility, not completely, but beginning. So now at that point, you're responsible. It's not on your father's shoulders. If, however, it was only placed upon the father, then when you become 13 years old, even though your father didn't do it, it's still your father's responsibility. That doesn't mean you can't step in if he's not being responsible, right? Just as in other areas in life, if someone is not being responsible for something, you can step in and take the responsibility, right? But, so what do you think? Which one's the truth? Andrew.
If you're underage, you can't undertake it. So how could you have any legal or even ethical responsibility to redeem yourself? You can't buy back yourself.
Well, you're okay. According to that opinion, right? According to that opinion, it's not suggesting that the child has got to take the responsibility. They can't. They're only a month old. So that's not the question. The question is, who is it essentially the Torah making responsible over here, right? Now, by proxy, so to speak, the father is fulfilling what is necessary. How many things that might be a child's responsibility, but a parent takes care of, right? Like, I'm sure you played baseball, Andrew, when you were younger. Maybe you still do. I mean, you're still young. And in playing baseball, when you were, when I was, I think 12 or 13, my father coached my team. Well, it was his team. It was our team, right? So what happens if you're playing out on the street and you're playing and you broke your neighbor's window? Who's responsible? You did the deed, right? So, but who's going to pay for it? Your father. I mean, he may put you to work for it, but in the end, by proxy, the parent is responsible because you're only 10 years old, you're 12 years old, whatever. You're not deemed responsible. The parent is going to be responsible. Sarah Malka, welcome. So you're right. By all intents and purposes, it is the father is going to take care of it. But yet the Torah is saying and making a statement here that really the responsibility is the child's. Okay. So which one do you think is right?
Rabbi,
The child.
The child one, Hannah. That's what you're saying.
Rabbi, can't this be a both and?
So the truth is, this is a machlekes. This is a debate between the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud. Now, if we had more time and all of us were more Talmudically prepared, I would go into a very deep, profound explanation on this, which, first of all, we don't have the time, but what comes out from the Talmud, from the Babylonian Talmud, it says that the obligation to redeem the firstborn rests solely on the father. Sorry. Yes, solely on the father. The Jerusalem Talmud says no. The Torah is really putting the obligation on the child, the son, but the father is responsible as long as the son is too young and incapable of being responsible. Now, the truth is, it is based on where you learn it out from. There's verse from our Torah portion, but there's a verses also later on in, sorry, give me a moment. Later on in Leviticus. In Parshas Korach and Bamidbar, in Numbers. We learn over there because there it's speaking about the Kohanim and the gifts, the 24 different kind of gifts that God bestowed upon them in place of them doing the service in the holy sanctuary, not having a piece of the land, that they would eventually not have a piece of land. They would do the service in the sanctuary. And these are certain gifts. And one of the gifts is that they get the 5 shekels from the father that would give for his son at 30 days, the firstborn son. So that's where it is in Parshas Korach. And in our Parsha, the context is the 10th plague, that the Egyptians were slain, the firstborn, and the Jewish firstborn was passed over, was saved. So this is where the debate and the nuance in the wording in each parsha is different. So and again, it's a very detailed that we won't go into now. But okay, what is the underlying principle behind this? Yeah, this debate. Any thoughts on that?
Rabbi, is it the age of the child? Like at first, I thought I heard you say before, or I should say after bat mitzvah age, and then the child is responsible?
Well, that's the debate. That's where the difference in law would be. According to the Babylonian Talmud, the father is always responsible to redeem, right? The rest thought, if the father fails and the son can do it once he becomes bar mitzvah, but the responsibility is upon the father, essentially. According to the Jerusalem Talmud, right, it sees it that the obligation is upon the child. Why? The first way we get, what is the Jerusalem Talmud coming to say? Any thoughts? Alice?
That the education of the child should give him that basis upon making some moral decisions. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, good point. I didn't say that, but good point.
Education and being bar mitzvah is, I know all the bar mitzvahs I've ever gone, they say, now you're responsible for yourself. Now you're a man and you're responsible for yourself.
Right, but remember that this responsibility is first set out already at 30 days, except it can't be carried out. So the father is now carrying it out. What does it mean to that, that it's a responsibility essentially on the child?
The child is being redeemed, though. It's not the father saying, I choose. He's saying, for my son's sake, I am going to ensure that he chooses to serve Hashem over serving the wealth of the world, right? So he's going to be responsible for that until the child can be responsible for himself.
Okay, very good. So let me tie in everything what you've said maybe and put it into these words and tell me how this resonates. First of all, the very fact, the very notion that this child belongs to God, this child belongs to God, not the father, this child. So inherently, there's something about this child, irrespective of the father. That's something inherently there that belongs to God. Well, that notion itself is, can we say, is the notion over here is, it's my thing. It's not my father's thing. It's my thing because I belong, God, firstborn, right? I belong. It's not I belong because of my father. God says the firstborn is mine. Well, I'm the firstborn, so I'm his, not, now you can't carry out the obligation to redeem yourself because you're too young. Okay, so your father will take care of it. Is that clear? Make sense? Heather? Want to say something? Oh, thumbs up. Thank you.
Is that the Babylonian Talmud? No, is that the Jewish?
No, that was the Jerusalem Talmud. That was the Jerusalem Talmud.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, to me, it makes sense too, because where else would he be redeemed if it wasn't on himself?
Right, but the way we thought till now is, I mean, he's a kid, he's
Right.
he's 1 month old. Obviously, he can't do it. So of course, it's the father's responsibility. So it is the father's responsibility. We're not saying that we're that he's responsible, but only because the child can't do it. In other words, inherently, it's this child of themselves that God says, you belong to me. So essentially, then it becomes something about that child to God, not, now the parent, the father has to come in and deal by proxy. Right. So there's something else that comes out of this. And this is my thought. So take it, I didn't see this. This is my own chiddush. So my own novel thought on this. There's a deeper argument that's going on over here. Who's responsible for me? Right? Am I responsible for me? Or is there something more that beyond me? So the Jerusalem Talmud is saying, well, you're responsible for yourself. You're responsible for yourself. Babylonian Talmud is saying, no. The parent is responsible. Or, as we've explained till now, what does it mean, a parent? Meaning the teacher to the student, the influencer to the influenced is responsible. And both are right. I am totally responsible for my life, and I can't make an excuse to myself, for myself. I have to take full responsibility. At the same time, then we could say very easily and very simply, you're responsible. You made bad decisions. No. Just as with the parent-child relationship, the parent is responsible for the child. So likewise, there is a influencer influenced that we're responsible, and we have to take that responsibility by proxy. This child is too young, and young is not necessarily just in age. It could be in growth in their commitment to God, and their growth in their Judaism, and their growth as a human being. And therefore we have a responsibility towards them. Perhaps that is which one is more important? My responsibility for myself, or the fact that I'm part of something greater than myself, part of a community, that there's a leadership role that the leaders are responsible for the people. So both things are ultimately true. Now, this is my own notion over here. So, my own thought that came to me in learning this. But I thought something that is, a beautiful idea that comes out from this. And with this, we can, as far as the Jewish people, we can understand, because in last week's Parsha, leading into this week, right? What does God say you should say to Pharaoh? So you should say to Pharaoh, B'ni B'chori Yisrael, B'ni, my child, B'chori, firstborn, Israel, the Jewish people. They're my firstborn. So now the whole idea of a firstborn child is a whole different notion. The whole idea of the firstborn child is about every single Jew. It is the firstborn child of God. And therefore, how do we look at that firstborn child? Who is taking responsibility to help redeem their lives? Well, there's a debate. What do we got to do? There's two paths. One is, of course, we've got to empower that child with everything that we can. That, and again, child is not by passport over here, right? Not on your passport age, but child meaning influencer versus influenced, teacher, student, parent, child. So need to empower, influence them in such a way that they're empowered, that they take full responsibility for their lives. Totally. At the same time, you can't say, well, I did everything. I gave them everything they need. Still responsible. You still have responsibility. I remember very clearly that I've been speaking times that when things go wrong with the one who is supposed to be influenced, whether it's the student or the student in the yeshiva or whatever it is, even though the Rebbe would reprimand the students for their misbehavior in what they did, but he also made the responsibility upon the teachers and the administration or whoever was in the power of influence, that you've got to influence in a better way, that you'll be able to make the effect that is necessary. You have responsibility. B'ni v'chori Yisrael. It's my child, God says. My firstborn is the Jewish people. This is what Hashem is saying. And this is what he's saying to us when he's saying that we need to redeem. We need to inspire in such a way that the next generation, and again, next generation isn't just mean the children. Of course it means the children, but it means tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, the world before us, how we need to engage in such a way that they're people that we're impacting or influencing. So, it's interesting every day when we learn Tanya, many of you, we learn Tanya every day, right? So what do I say at the end of the class? Sharing is caring. Share, I don't know if I said every class, but share the class. First of all, why you should share the class? Because you become an influencer. Others become influenced because you share the class. And that's an amazing thing. You did nothing but push a button, right? You pushed a button, and because of that, you shared. You became an influencer. Now, I know what happens, and some people are afraid of making an influence in a way that's going to be written on their forehead. Tanya, oh, you are a whatever. And especially in this culture of cancel culture. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to be canceled out by so many people. Oh, look at this, a rabbi, teaching, missed it, like, that's a challenge. That's a challenge that we need to recognize that it is a challenge, firstly. And what's interesting is, in the Code of Jewish Law, the very first law in the Code of Jewish Law is Al Yovesh Mipnei Hamaligim. Do not be embarrassed by those that mock. There will be people that will mock because you say, what are you doing with a tradition that is outdated? What are you doing with teachings that is archaic? And the natural inclination is, even though we don't believe it, and the proof is, you're here. If you believed it, you wouldn't be learning day in, day out, week in, week out. You wouldn't be doing it. So you don't believe it. But that's all what it means. The first law in the code of Jewish law, al yodesh mipnei hamaligim, don't be embarrassed by mockers. It means you believe in something, but you're embarrassed. I'm sorry, folks. You're now in a positions of influencers. You're now in positions of Vishinantam Levanecha that you need to teach the next person, the next generation, the next people that we come in contact with. We have that responsibility. Now, for the Jewish people, as a Jew, for Jewish people, that is an outright, clear responsibility. But we also have that responsibility to the nations of the world. 7 Noahide laws. As a matter of fact, what divine providence? Today I was speaking with someone here in Montreal. One second. Get this in front of me. Wow. God runs the world, I tell you. I didn't know how. Nutta Feinstein, and he gives a class of 7 Noahide laws for those who are not Jewish, for 7 Noahide laws. And actually, more importantly, he's creating a community for such people. They're on Zoom. They have an English class, a French class, a Spanish class now, and so on. So, by the way, if anybody is interested, in our tiny class and in this class, not everybody is Jewish, and someone is interested in the 7 Noahide laws and to be part of such a community, let me know, and I can get you in touch. And you can look into this and see if it's something that is meaningful for you. Or you can go to asknoah.org, and some of that stuff is up over there. In any case, the point being is that as Jewish people, we also have responsibility for the entirety of humanity, the 7 Noahide laws. But I'm afraid that it's over. You have no choice now. We're influencers. Now, some are greater influencers because you got your sphere of influence is greater. You know more people. You come in contact with more people. And some people it's smaller. But that's irrelevant. Every one of us is an educator on some level. As the Rebbe said, not even we're adults. The Rebbe spoke about this, I remember very clearly, about children. That when a Jewish child learns Kometz Aleph All, they learn only the first letter of the Aleph Bet, the letter Aleph, and they know how to pronounce it with the Kometz, with the vowel, and they know how to say Oh. In Ashkenazi, it's Oh, right? So that child, that Rebbe said, you should train that child. Listen, what the responsibility to go out in the street and find another Jewish child to teach Kometz Aleph Oh, to go and teach that, and that's all the child knows. So that's what the child needs to go and to inspire. That's how we need to raise our children, literal children, and that's how we have to raise our students, those people that we influence. So for those who were on earlier with Rabbi Mendy, with the rabbi from Budapest, and speaking about what we have here in Montreal, is the Mitzvah Society, where people are involved in not just doing mitzvahs for yourself. Of course, that goes without saying. You don't need a society for that. All you need is for yourself to do the mitzvah, whether it's tefillin, tzedakah, whatever it is. But a society, that's in order that you can help to bring that to society. So we've created that. And we all need to be a part of that. You can be part of it with us here, even if you're not local. You can still be a part of it. But we have a lot to do together. So, first, I want to know, I want a thumbs up who's in on this. Who's ready for this?
Sorry, Rabbi Fine.
Celia, 1 second. I'm in the middle of asking an important question. Just wait just a moment. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to know who's in on this. I see a few thumbs up. Wait, 1 second. I'm taking a picture of this. I want thumbs up. I want to see who has thumbs up. Hannah, I don't see your thumbs up. Art, I don't see your thumbs up. Robert, who's got thumbs up? Leslie, Celia, thumbs up. All right. I have it on film now. You're obligated.
Right, now I know.
And
Now I have evidence that you're ready to be part of the Mitzvah Society, that you're ready to be an influencer.
Can
Again,
I leave now?
if it's only one person that will fulfill a mitzvah more because of you, that's amazing. Don't look at it as a small thing. I am that one person that someone influenced me. And because of that, the ripple effect is fantastic. So look at it that way.
I am leaving at the time.
Go ahead, Celia.
Thank you.
Go ahead. You wanted to ask something.
Thank you. I'm leaving. I have to leave.
Okay. God bless you. Thank you for being thumbs up. So don't minimize it. Don't.
Ufaratsta.
Ufaratsta, exactly.
Ufaratsta.
Got to spread it out. Spread out Torah, Jewish teachings for all Jews and all of humanity, the 7 Noahide laws. So that's what we, I hope we are inspired with. I inspired myself, but I hope I inspired you too.
Yes.
Any questions? Any comments?
You are
Now
very
I know.
inspiring, Rabbi.
Okay.
Rena, sorry, you want to say something? Andrew?
I said you are very inspiring always.
Yeah. Mhm. True.
Wait a second. Rena, 1 second. I thank you for that. That's very kind of you, but I'm only as inspiring as what you accomplish. If
Thank
you will in turn inspire others, again, whatever it is, in whatever it is that you will in turn inspire, then I'm inspiring. If you don't.
You know Linda from the Netherlands that comes on?
Who?
Linda from the
Yes,
Netherlands.
yes.
I inspired her. She's my friend in the Netherlands.
All right, good lady. One second, Rena. There's no doubt in my mind that you inspire. I didn't question that. I was only making the comment on what you said about me. So, so what further you will inspire from tonight and furthermore will be how great an inspiration I truly am.
Yes.
Yes, Andrew, sorry, you wanted to say something.
I was just going to say, in terms of the dispute as to whose obligation it is to redeem, under our obligation under the Shema, the V'ahavta, we have to teach our children. So how could you engage in teaching your children if, from a perspective that God actually redeemed them and they were taken to the temple or taken away from us? We can't fulfill that obligation to teach the children unless we keep them.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch.
In other words, you said the question is whether the child has to redeem himself or the parent has to redeem him. In order, we're mandated or compelled to teach our children. So from a spiritual perspective, if the child were taken away from us, how could we fulfill that obligation?
Well, so 1 second, pay the 5 shekels and the child won't be taken away from you.
but that's what I'm saying. So
pay your dues. You gotta pay for your child. Listen, it's only a lesson to teach us that child rearing, you gotta pay for it. It's expensive. Especially a Jewish child, Jewish
kids in college,
mitzvahs and everything. You got to pay for it. So look, right away, God's teaching you, giving you a message.
And what a blessing! And what a blessing it
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Pay to play.
Yes. All right. Any other questions or comments? Anybody?
I thought this was really inspiring about, influence, because something that I've been working on, I thought, how do I explain this without, because it deals with secular people also, and not just Jews, but kind of combining everybody in a specific way. And so this was really inspiring to be able to go, oh, okay, thank you. That's putting more perspective on it, so thank you so much for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
I,
Folks,
I have a question. Can I have a,
Margot, just give me one quick second
Okay.
before I forget. I'm sometimes forgetting. I don't want to forget this. A reminder that we started my yeshiva, my rabbi, my life, and everybody is welcome to join us every single day now, from 12 noon to 1:30. Rabbi Mendy's from 12 to 12:45. I teach from 12:45 to 1:30. And everybody is welcome to come and join us. It's amazing. It's on this Zoom station. You don't have to go too far for this. And just give me one quick second just to share with you. Here's the flyer. You can see it over here. My yeshiva, my rabbi, my life. To come and join us Sundays through Friday. We've just made a very serious commitment. I don't know what I got myself into, or I got myself into, because every day, teaching Tanya, I've been doing it for a long time, and Tanya is, you learn it every day in any case. But this is like new material, new stuff. I'm looking forward to the challenge. After all, after what we just spoke about, I mean, how could we not, try to influence in a greater manner and to do more? Ufaratsta, we need to spread forth. Margot, go for it.
okay, there are two things. One was, for me, I was concerned about trolls, to be honest with you. I thought, oh, I'd love to share this, but there's so many people that'll jump on and just, mess with people. And that actually happened in a different, rabbinical training that somebody did. And the poor guy didn't know what to do. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so, they finally somebody within it got rid of the guy, but and the guy apologized, which was nice. But then I thought, okay, there's a responsibility for both of us, like the people we're bringing in, we say, okay, I'm going to share it. And then you got people who truly want to learn. And then you've got these people out there that are just.
So when you share something on Facebook or something like that, right? And, the fact that someone makes a comment, you can always delete it, first of all, right? Yeah. If it's an inappropriate comment. And you don't have to deal with it. But think about the one person that you may change their life.
Yeah.
Think about the one person that might tune into the class, say, oh my gosh, wow, I never heard such talk. I never heard such ideas. And this could change their life, as several people here have come to Tanya and how it's changed their lives, literally. So, and perhaps they only came to it by chance because maybe someone else shared it. They just happened to come on to the page, by divine providence, obviously, but nothing that was necessarily they even were looking for, but it was there. It came to them.
Mm-hmm.
It was in their face. That's what happened to me. I didn't look for it. Another time I'll share with you more stuff in a Fabringen when we say l'chaim, and we'll share some personal stories and stuff. But just look at it that way. Naysayers, it will always be.
Okay.
But who cares? Until Mashiach comes, there's going to be darkness in the world. There will be people that will live in the dark, and that's okay. That's, but we need to make that effort. And again, we plant the seed. You don't know who you might have that positive effect, and that's all that counts. That one person that could change their life. Why are you holding back something? It's actually interesting. The Alter Rebbe brings a phrase from the Talmud in his preface to chapter 1, and he says he's making the argument of why he wrote the book, as opposed to having private audience with him to get guidance, that you'll get the guidance from the book. It says, and if you have difficulty finding the guidance within the Tanya, so then you'll go to the teachers in your community, and they will help you to find how these teachings speak to you specifically, right? Which is something I'm still going to do, by the way, the Tanya therapy. We're going to have more.
I've heard about it for a long time.
I hope sooner than later. You hold me accountable. Hold me accountable. So the Alter Rebbe uses a phrase there that, and don't put your hand to your mouth. And the influencer, the mentor, the teacher, and say, well, who am I to inspire you or to help you, to guide you, and what the Alter Rebbe means for you. It says you are what's called menei bar. You're holding back food, spiritual food, nourishment. You hold back spiritual nourishment for another that they could be inspired. He says, the Talmud says about such a person that there's a very big punishment for that individual, because the greatest thing you can do is to feed another. And the only true poor people are poor people of mind and spirit. That's true poorness, the Talmud tells us. The sages in the Talmud tell us. So to hold back, we can't hold back. Can't hold back.
Can you repeat that exactly? The only poor people are the
poor of mind, poor of spirit, and therefore we can't hold back to feed them, to give them nourishment, to give them the Tanya, give them this class, give them whatever it is that you can share. By the way, this class is on Chabad Zichron, or my page if you want to share it.
I have another question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if the first discussions about the firstborn male, but then when God's saying my firstborn is Israel, is that inclusive of everyone? And how does that,
every Jew?
Yeah. So how does that affect this concept of being bought back?
We all need to be redeemed. We all need to, right? We don't have the specific mitzvah of the 5 coins, the 5 shekels that you have to give to the Kohen on the 30th day. That's only for the firstborn child, firstborn male child. But the concept that we belong to God, right? We're his servants. We're not someone else's servant.
Right.
So even if we could be in servitude in prison, or we could be in the gulag, we could be in a camp, God forbid, right? God forbid, in the concentration camp, they can imprison our body, but they can't imprison our spirit. Our souls are free. Our souls are only belonging to Hashem. And we're only but that.
Amazing.
So in that respect, and that was today's Tanya, that we have to redeem, right? That the chachma of our soul can be lost, can be asleep, can be dormant. And we have to wake it up. In that sense, that's what we all need. All right, folks, this has been amazing. This has been a great pleasure. I thank you all. Hannah from Manchester, Linda and Denise from New York. Art is with us from Michigan. Robert, Boston. Sherry is in California, if I remember correctly, right? Alice is in Baltimore. Sarah Malka is in Charlotte, North Carolina. Andrew is in Springfield, New Jersey. Pablo's in Florida, right?
Yes,
Rita in
absolutely.
Colorado. Irma is in New Jersey, correct? Leslie in Montreal. Heather in Connecticut, Norwood, Connecticut, right? Right. Shoshana Bina is in Virginia. And Margot is you're in California, right?
Correct. Very good.
Good memory. Where are you originally from, Rabbi?
My mother.
Come on. The reason why I ask you,
I'm born in Israel, but my parents left after 10 weeks.
Oh,
So I was raised in Toronto and made Aliyah to Montreal. But that's for another time.
wonder.
That's for another time. All right, folks. God bless you. Shavua tov, good tavach. Good week. Well.
Yeah.
See you
Well, cool.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So good.